Human relationships embody life's most important dimensions, yet few of us are really very good at connecting with the people we encounter every day, our families, friends, and business associates. We may have set up boundaries in our relationships long ago to protect ourselves from getting hurt. But when we really connect with another human being, or even with ourselves, we are enriched by the relationship. What is a true connection? How do we find our true selves? Can we enrich ourselves by opening ourselves up? Here to discuss these and other matters about connecting is Launa Huffines, who is a communications consultant and a workshop leader. She's a regular speaker at universities, businesses, and government agencies. She has also taught courses on how to manage time and unleash creative energy. Launa, welcome.
Thank
to Body
you, Miles.
and Soul.
I'm happy to be here.
It's good. Your body's here. Let's get into the soul.
That's right.
Your body's here in beautiful blue. Connecting. What's connecting?
Connecting to me is more than we usually do when we're with people. You know, the people we know the best are often the ones we forget to connect with. We get caught up even at home with our husbands or wives in the mechanics of living, and did you turn the water off? Did you check the baby? And so forth. We always think there's going to be time the next day. And yet, instead of just spending time together, which we even fall into that a lot, like we'll turn on the television and think we spent the evening together, but we haven't connected, and it only takes a moment.
Yeah.
A man often will hesitate a little because he thinks he's going to be put through a grill of questions or something, and yet it can be done in silence. When both people look at the other one for one, say 15 seconds,
you really
just in
don't
appreciation, that there is a connection, and the hearts are lifted, the spirit is lifted again.
You're connecting with me now with your eyes, with a lot of life and energy, and your hand is sort of working out there like I want to reach out. And is that a part of connecting?
I think so.
Eyes,
and to have the courage, like you're a connector, of course, but to have the courage to reach out and touch, I think is wonderful. Because a little child, an octogenarian, anyone responds to someone reaching out.
Yeah.
And what I call real connections are being in touch with a part of ourselves that's deeper and that has a far greater sense of understanding than we generally do in our day-to-day moments.
That's the soul, or the
subconscious. I call it the true self,
but
but in a way it's being in touch with our soul, and then we reach out to the other person and we touch that same part of the other person.
Yeah.
And in that instant, there's a connection. It can happen with people who don't even speak the same language.
I was thinking, as you're speaking, of hospital work. So often we find when we go to visit somebody in the hospital, there is nothing to say. There is nothing to do. They're dying of cancer or whatever it is. They're in excruciating pain. You can't do anything. You can't say anything. And you just grab and you just say, with your hand, I'm here. I'm with you. I am, it's compassion. I am suffering with you. But you talk about the family, and I remember a study, I don't know how accurate, 2 or 3 years ago, of the time that husbands and wives actually spend communicating, connecting with each other. And out of the 168 hours in a week, I think the average was 28 minutes.
Wow.
20, it just sends, you know, and I just said that thing again, 28 minutes. In other words, they added up all the time they spent during commercials, in bed, on the telephone, over meals, and found that we're averaging. Well, that means some people spend 28 minutes a day, thank God. Some people must not be communicating at all. Must be going through weeks and even months with just sort of perfunctory...
Even when they're with people. And you know, this is the age of unbelievable loneliness and isolation in the 80s. And it seems to be getting more of an epidemic every year.
I think you're right.
So I think after I'd done years, I have 4 sons, and they're all grown. So I became very interested in what it is that works as I taught and did workshops and studied myself. because I wanted to know how to connect better with my sons and with my husband.
Because you were a good connector, and had good connections at home, or because they were they difficult?
Well,
I mean, were you the model wife and mommy? Or?
It depends on who you ask. I love children, and we often had a lot of children in our home, maybe 20, and I loved connecting with them. But I noticed that as I would work in consulting with people, counseling with people, even therapists would have great difficulty connecting with the people who meant the most. Now, I happen to think it's fun to connect with people in the grocery store, the clerk, or at the service station, just for a moment. And you know, anybody can do it. It's, you know, we talk about...
How do you do it? How do you do it in those...
All you have to do is imagine for a moment that this is the last time you'll see that person. That there's a unique and very beautiful and very noble being behind those eyes. And you see it.
And there is.
And of course you might see them again, but you've still got that connection the next time you see them.
You wrote a book about that, and I read your book this weekend, and one of the funnest things for me, because I think sometimes books are about ideas, and it's difficult to translate the idea, the vision. This is also idealistic, you know. We have a book that we call the Bible, the New Testament, which is about connecting, about loving, about caring, and so many people have read it, and it's still so hard to do. Well, you have little flashcards. I don't know, how many are there?
There's one for each chapter, so there's 64.
64 cards, and you said, take these cards and you tear them out and find one that really speaks to you. And the first one that I picked up was appreciating where you are right now.
Oh, yeah.
That just spoke to me. And I think I was sitting on the bed at that time, and I just sort of took the card. It's beyond going somewhere. Appreciate where you are right now. And just sort of settled it. And the second one was about, well, I've lost it now, but it was about empowering others. Here it is. Beyond helping. You know, empowering other people. We're all so good at helping. Let me help you up, you know, like you're down there. And I help
That's
you
right.
up. But empowering you so that well, I mean, that would be the answer to the, what do you call the aid stuff, poverty.
We do, and we want to help our friends, and yet when we get into that position, we make them weaker and us stronger. Now, it's great for us, but then they're weaker. Instead of helping them remember when they had the qualities that they need in order to succeed in whatever it is they want to be or do. And when we can help them recall those qualities, and when they had it and how they felt, then they can do it. They are strong.
Bringing out the best in them.
Yeah, and focusing in on it, helping them to set a time when they can take their first step towards their goal, like their vision and their dream in life.
Yeah, that's, well, your whole book is that. It throws it back to the individual. Somebody said once that the definition of a true leader is someone who makes others great.
But then they are great. I don't have to make them great.
That's right. Let them be great.
There is such a nobility in every human being, and we forget. And the moment we remember, we're connected with that person. And we also have to acknowledge it's within us. You see, I think we've built fences around ourselves. I know we have.
Sure we have.
To protect ourselves, as you said earlier. And yet we can always cut a gate. There's always a gate that we can cut so that we can reach through the fence that we've built, now that we're the big people, and make that connection.
Who cuts the gate? Do we cut it, or does someone who loves us very much
either cut the gate or find the gate? No, no one can get through unless we want them to. We're protected. The irony of it is that it keeps us from reaching out. So often the gate is there. All we have to do is find it. So that's, in other words, on each chapter is a gate. Like this one's Beyond Right and Wrong, recognizing the wisdom of the heart. And that's the gate. The wisdom of the heart.
The heart.
And I've been caught up in times when I felt so right about something and I was determined to prove that I was right. And all of a sudden I would remember, I wrote this for me, it's my way out, the whole book. I would remember, oh yeah, the heart. Oh, how do you recognize the wisdom of the heart when you're trying to be right? And I would close my eyes for about 30 seconds and tell the person, just hold on a minute. And it would come, a whole different energy. And when I opened my eyes, the person looked different. I felt different about the whole situation. And we both start smiling.
Yeah, yeah.
It was over. I didn't have to prove anything.
I loved what you said about forgiveness in that same vein.
Yes, beyond forgiveness. Reinterpreting and re-envisioning the past. Yeah. Because I don't think we can forgive if we remember it. We're still saying, I forgive you, but I won't forget it. But if we reinterpret it, meaning that if we actually can realize that person was doing the best he or she could, and that we were doing the best we could, then there's really nothing to forgive. I think when we most feel like a victim, I know it is with most of the people I've worked with, is when we feel that somewhere we had an inkling something was going wrong and we didn't take action. Way back there. And once we can see that we also played a little part in setting ourselves up to be hurt in some way, then we can smile and know that we made the best choice we could imagine at the moment. We know better now, but we didn't then. And let go of it. And we have gone beyond forgiveness.
And forgive ourselves.
Blame goes both ways. Any moment that we blame someone else, we're going to bounce it back and forth and blame ourselves.
I want to go to the
as well as
the audience
the others.
And involve these people. But before, Launa, before we do, a young woman who works with us at the Catholic Communications Center here in San Francisco came up to me 2 nights ago and said this: how do you handle waking up in the middle of the night in terror? Do you, she is saying to me as a Catholic priest, do you have something you do to handle that? I am waking up in the middle of the night, gripped in terror. What can I do?
What I would have you do, I love, a priest is asking me what to do. I love it. But what I would have said to this woman is, first of all, to get up out of the bed, turn the light on and get up.
Excuse me.
The times that I've awakened, all of us have had moments of awakening in terror. And we hear a noise. The first thing to do is turn the light on and start walking through the house. I mean, then we like ourselves, we're courageous. The worst thing that could happen is that we get killed, you know, so. It never happens. There's never been anyone in my house. But my choice was to lie there afraid or to get up and move around. And then, of course, if that's too hard, or after she's done that, the idea is we can't learn anything lying down. Don't ever make a decision lying down. I've learned that. But get up. Sit in a chair, not in the bed, because we don't make wise decisions sitting in the bed. That's where she got afraid. But to get up, go on the other side of the room, and talk to herself, the side of her who was lying in the bed afraid, and say, Mary, I know how afraid you felt, but I'm going to help you remember some things about who you really are. And talk as her soul, her higher self. What I call that part when I'm teaching that dialogue is the inner consultant. She has a personal consultant who is wiser and more compassionate, who sees who she is and understands her more than any other human being could. And if she'll stand, but you really need to move your physical body to another side of the room and look at the pillow where she's been lying and say, you were afraid.
It's like so close to Jungian psychology, where Jung says there are different people in there. There's a little frightened boy in there, and a little girl, and there's an old daddy. Hey, where are you people? What do you want to ask, Launa?
About connecting.
About connecting.
I don't know about everything.
Yes, please.
You mentioned about a fence and a gate and so forth. What happens when that fence becomes a stone wall? Is there any hope for that kind of person?
Oh, yes. Well, how would you blast out a stone wall with dynamite, you know? In that case, I would say, imagine that you have 6 months to live. that you're not going to be sick, that there's no arrangements to make. But you have 6 healthy, wonderful months. What would you want to do in those months? Who are the people you would want to say something to, who you will not see again? And I would start by writing letters. I think it's easier to write letters to establish a connection sometimes. There's some people I've written a lot of letters to, and I didn't mail the first 5 I wrote. I mailed the 6th one because I wanted to be sure that it was not, if I had, some bad feelings I wanted to express, I could express it in a letter. And after rewriting and rewriting, I got through that concrete wall. And I began, nearly every time, our negative feelings, our resentments and our hurts and angers, feelings of rejection are here. And underneath, if we can get those off, out of the way, underneath that are amazingly soft feelings of delight and joy, and memories start bubbling up. If you can write the letter and say the things that aren't working, that you don't appreciate about that person, any feelings of blame, not mail that letter. But then because that would be harmful to the other person probably, then the good feelings start bubbling up. And the moment you even think of that person with a joyful memory, then, and even if it's not connected with the person, there are ways you can connect your best memories of your highest moments when you felt the richest within and the most loving and just full of delight. And you can connect those moments with seeing that person again, even if it's your boss. And then when you do that, you forget it. And the next time you see the person, you do have a different sense of connection. It's as if somehow through the air, that feeling wafted through the air and reached that person. Often, I'll tell you another way that I like. I think of someone I want to connect with. Maybe it's someone I don't know. Maybe it's someone in power that I need to know to help my work, get my work out. But whoever it is, I touch my heart and imagine that their heart, that person's heart, his or hers, is beating at the same time as mine, that our hearts are beating in unison, just for a moment. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to tell you how to get through every stone wall. You imagine that you're on a desert island and that this person you really want to connect with is on the island with you, a deserted island. That you are sitting there talking, and you're talking about the most important things that have ever happened to you. The turning points of your life and the highest moments. And what you do is begin to touch the nobility within that other person, and at the same time the nobility within yourself.
Now, while we're on that island with that other person,
yes,
I want to ask you about connecting, not for me now, but for others, with a date. Let's say that you want to find a mate, a life partner,
yes,
a loved one, and you're tired of the bars. And
I would hope so.
Quickly,
it wouldn't take long to
quickly
get tired.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just strikes me that you would have a suggestion for how to meet Mr. Right or Ms. Right.
Well, I think what happens is that if we get too eager to meet this perfect one, and he or she is out there, I know they are. Now, what we do is we get these expectations, and then we start building ourselves up for disappointment. Now, the way I see it, if we can open ourselves up to surprises, and that's one of the chapters, beyond expectation, accepting surprise, that person it's like to meet, the opportunities to meet the people who would enrich your lives, are just circling around like waiting to land, like airplanes waiting to land over your field. But as long as the expectations are there, there's no real permission to land. Now, as soon as you drop the expectation, I've got to tell you this story, and it won't take but a minute, but this only happened 3 years ago. Not actually my husband, but I couldn't get back from Palm Springs. I was doing a show down, a television show, on the day I wanted to, and I had to stay an extra day in order to get back on the flight. And the travel agent worked with me, and we worked, and it was either going to cost $150 more and a 3-hour layover in LA, or I would wait till the next day. So I said, look, I'm going to forget all about my expectation of getting back on Thursday. I'll take the Friday plane, and I'm going to sit down and wait for a surprise on that plane. And I want to tell you, you're the first to know, I met the most interesting, fascinating man I have ever seen. And ironically, he has, it's not ironic, it's just coincidentally, he has a radio show in New York called Compassionate Connections. So he was delighted to hear about the connecting book, and I wanted to hear about his show. It seemed as if we were up in the air 3 minutes. And that's what I mean about giving up any expectation, and you're just open to surprise. Now, had I not had that in my mind, I probably would have been sitting there reading a book. And here was a very interesting person who could be a lifelong friend. And that's what I'm into, are many, many good, close, lifelong friends. Because our lives are so rich. If we leave everyone out but supposedly one person, we don't have the opportunities for all those parts of ourselves to connect. And that's when I think our lives are the richest, by making many lifelong friends. After I meet someone, and you probably do this, and I say, I want to be your lifelong friend.
Oh, gee.
And I'll always be there to give you support, and I'll always be there when you need me, and I think you're wonderful, and it's a very rich life, yeah.
How do you reconnect the connection that keeps disconnecting?
Good question. I think it keeps disconnecting.
Yeah, like, let's say your boss or somebody in your everyday life.
By the way, I have something to hand to you. It's 7 steps to connecting. I have it ready for you. It tells you, though, exactly the 7 ways. The first, you think of the person. Second, I'll go over it very rapidly. What kind of connection would you really like? And get an idea of what it would be. Would it be joyful? Would it be spontaneous? Would it have a lot of humor and so forth in it? Freedom in it. Now, then you think of the quality that you would need to bring into your way of expressing it to make that connection happen. And then you go to that deep self until pictures begin to come up for you of how you could do it, how you could connect with that person. And you begin to see how you would be standing and what the other person would be saying. And you see this scene as if it's a movie.
Are you saying that we sometimes disconnect because we make the wrong connection?
Well, no. You mean, say more about that.
Well, like you mentioned the fact that if we'd like that connection to be humorous or, spontaneous or, fulfilling in, many different ways, maybe one might be aiming for the wrong target, so to speak. And
a lot of
then hitting the right one will make the right connection. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and it really, first of all, just to make the connection, and then give that person your vision of what's possible as a relationship, your highest vision. And I think that pays off every time to go
in your mind or with the person?
Personally. Say, this is my vision of what we could have. We could laugh together, we could do this, we could do this.
I think you scare some people to death.
Oh,
you're overpowering,
I've never
woman.
seen anyone run away from that offer. To have fun together and you see their beauty, you see who they are. Because more than anything, we long to be recognized for who we are. And a person out there can be a mirror to us and show us that. In fact, if your television audience would like a copy of that, they could write me. Shall we give them the address, and I'll mail them one.
Do they have a card for that? Sure. Or they can just write to the program.
Okay, fine.
They can just write to Body and Soul, Body and Soul, KRON,
Fine.
And we'll forward your requests.
All right, and I'll mail those 7
Sure.
steps to them.
7 steps to, hey, 7 steps. A lot of this sounds, and I had this thing as I
Yes.
was reading Connecting, like a kind of power of positive thinking, affirmations,
Well,
self-hypnosis.
It's not any of those.
Imaging, no.
I'm glad you brought that up. Those
Okay.
are the things it's not.
It's not, okay. That's why I brought it up.
What it is going to the power and the authority of our true selves. The self or the soul within us has the authority for our lives rather than someone else. Many women have tried to set up their lives with the man as their authority rather than their own inner wisdom and their own inner intuition. And men have probably done the same thing.
You bet they have, sure.
We've compromised, and
need.
so I have a chapter on Beyond Compromise, because most of the things we argue about don't even matter. And if we can get back in touch with what truly matters, our path in life, and then share our highest vision with that person, so often the visions do match, they go together. And so this book is about, the truth is, it's about calling in our own inner consultant and taking the time to connect with that deep self.
Where is God in all this?
That God, to me, that's the closest we can get to God, I think, is that, to me, the deep, I call it the Christ self. But every religion has a different name. The Buddha self, the Christ self, the true self. And that's our connection to God. That's how we hear intuitively the wisdom, not just for the day, but the wisdom of, to call John Smith. And then we learn that he indeed was very depressed, and we've picked his day up in a new way.
Thank you for getting connected with us.
Thank you for asking me. I loved being with you.
You are special, and you connect. I pray that that you all will get connected and stay connected with God, with one another, with yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much.